everyone doing today? This is Bob Gums with the Concerned Forum. And, I tell you, we keep having these interesting and very sad weeks. Let me first start off by sending our condolences to the 3 African American people who were shot and killed in Jacksonville, Florida, a couple of days ago. And, I tell you, the funny thing is that the governor, the little Hitler, DeSantis, this guy comes out. It would be hilarious if it was not so damn tragic. This guy is going to come out and he's going to talk about his condolences to the family of the folks that were murdered. And here goes a funny thing, funny in a sense of irony. Okay, the young Caucasian gentleman that did this terrible deed, and I believe it happened at a dollar store, if I'm not mistaken. So now what we're saying is that south of the Mason and Dixon line, no, I take that back, because we had a similar incident happen up here in Buffalo, New York. So now black folks are given notice, we can't shop anymore. We can't go to the store. We can't shop. And it's okay for these, what would you call them, insane racists to go and basically decide to kill us. And I find that to be just so damn strange in a so-called civilized country. But we know really that this country ain't all that damn civilized. And that's why I say this SOB of a governor, I mean, you gotta give the guy credit, okay? He does have some real testosterone, okay? Because as far as I'm concerned, DeSantis is the one that caused that murder. No. All you knuckleheads out there that call yourself Republican, I'm not saying that DeSantis killed anyone. What I am saying is that Ron created an environment where hate can flourish. Now, in case anybody hasn't noticed, in the United States, we have a preponderance of emotionally disturbed people and a preponderance of weapons. We have more weapons in this country than we have people. We have over 350 million people in this country. So if I tell you that we have more weapons than people, and that we have one of the highest, if not the highest, ratio of dangerous, emotionally unstable people in comparison to what we would, call normal, well, that's a combustible mixture. I don't care what political party you're in. When you have a situation where you have so much emotional and psychological insecurity, and you have so many weapons laying around, you're asking, you're asking for massacres and confusion. And unless we start to send this out to other parts of the country, which we will be doing, but for those of us who live here in the northeastern urban area, if you have never lived in the South, then it might be a little bit hard for you to understand. But living in the South, it is not. As a matter of fact, it's typical. Driving down Route 1, right? You can drive Route 1 from downtown Manhattan, I believe, all the way down to, how did we do that time? All the way down to Florida. And as you drive through these, little towns, villages, what have you, you have your roadway, right? You got your highway, like I-95, and then you have, I guess you would say, like an interstate type deal, like Route 1, okay? And, you see your McDonald's, maybe a Wendy's, what's that other one that people like to go to all the time? Walton's, stores like that, dollar stores, and you're going to see the gun stores all over the place. Signs, special AK-47s, and this is America. You don't see that in other Western countries. Okay, I mean, you really don't. You don't see a whole bunch of gun stores as you drive down Canopy Street in Britain, in London, But that's what you see in the American South and the Southwest. That's what, that is, how should I say it? That's a major part of this country. And then when you have a political party that can help to spawn people like a Trump or like a DeSantis or like, what's that crazy girl from Georgia, MTG? And what's the other one? Bobbitt, from the only real insane district in Colorado. When you have a so-called political party who works on building up people like that and or being like a welcome mat for people like that, what the hell do you expect? I will tell you something, and I don't want anyone to take this the wrong way. I really don't. I know how it is to lose a close family member to gun violence. But it's a lot, it's somewhat different being caught up in the quote unquote drug game, or getting caught up in a stupid argument with people that in the neighborhood. That's different than getting your head blown off because you happen to be the wrong skin color. The other two, well, can it be helped? Well, yes and no. Like they say, being at the wrong place at the wrong time. But the other one, being slaughtered because you happen to be black or Hispanic or Asian, hey, You don't choose how how you come into this world, right? We don't have any choice in that. And what this young fellow decided to do, he decided to write a manifesto. Now, as far as I know, his manifesto has not been released as of yet. But, I mean, come on. The high points have been already put out there. Black people are dangerous. Black people trying to take over the country, along with immigrants, so on and so forth. Now, who in the hell has been preaching that nonsense for the last 8 years? What are we now, 2023? Started getting funky in late 2015, 2016. So what's that, 2016, give or take? 4, okay, 23. So what's that, 7, 8 years, all right? 7 to 8 years, especially to people who have basically a coming of age in this time period. What have they been hearing? Black people are the enemy. The brown immigrants want to take over America and put white guys out of work. White women who believe in choice, they are trying to destroy white men. They are also trying to destroy the family. They are against the Bible. The Jews are financing this whole takeover of America by left-wing communists. Don't look at me like I'm crazy. I'm telling you what these people are preaching. This is the God, and by the way, we're not talking about your nutty uncle, right? Or your warped-minded granddad. Because listen, a lot of these, old folks, more and more every day, they're starting to wake up and they're starting to realize, hey, these Republicans are trying to take away my goddamn Social Security. See? And you have, how should I say this? You have these people, late teens, going into their 30s, people who have basically come of age recently, okay? And unfortunately, because of circumstances, family issues, what have you, right? They believe, they hear this garbage and they fall for it. They actually fall for it. And that is the tragedy. That is what the Republican Party, that's the hole that it has dug for itself. So that's what I would like to point out at this time. I am surprised. I'm truly surprised that the incident that we saw in Buffalo, where what was it? I think 11 people were slaughtered because they were black. And now this thing in Jacksonville, where 3 people were slaughtered because, because they were black. I'm surprised, especially in places like Jacksonville, that we haven't had more of this type of thing. I truly am. And as I said before, I'm not trying to make light of this. Um, I lost my oldest child, my firstborn son, to gun violence. So I understand what those folks in Jacksonville, I understand what they're going through. But we have to understand just what is going on. And what is going on is that you have a political party, the Republican Party, one of the two major parties in this country, that have decided to basically become fascist, right? It hurts me. It hurts me deeply. I don't know how long some of you out there have listened to my program, but you have to understand that here goes the deal. I grew up in the Republican Party. And as I said, those of you who have watched this show before are probably aware of that fact. My parents were very active Republicans in Harlem. And I will say that is no big deal. It really isn't. Most of the people, I started out in life, once they took me out of St. Luke's Hospital, where I was born, I spent my first 4 years on 112th Street off of 8th Avenue. And from that time on, we moved to the projects, Grand Projects, on 125th and Amsterdam. And right there on the South Street, 55 of the South Street. And it was no big deal, right? It was no big deal to have black folks who registered as Republicans. It wasn't a thing, it was not a thing. And as I said, my parents were extremely active in the Republican Party. As a matter of fact, my old man was a district leader for a time. Morningside Heights Republican Club. Oh, yeah. And in the clubhouse, they had a marvelous library. I mean, books that were done up in the 1880s, 1890s. A lot of books on World War I and what have you. And my parents were also extremely active in the civil rights movement. I mean, you name it, they were there, demonstrating for Kenya, Nigeria, for these places to get their independence. Down at the United Nations, listening to Eleanor Roosevelt speak. And thanks to my mom, I had the opportunity to go see and hear Martin Luther King speak when he gave his speech against the war in Vietnam publicly. He made two. The first one that was recorded was at the apartment of Robert Vaughn. You might, I don't know how old you are, but if you're old enough, you remember a show called The Man from U.N.C.L.E. It's about that, spy type stuff. Everybody was getting into the James Bond thing in the early 60s. And Robert Vaughn was, what was his name in the show? I can't, Napoleon Solo, if I'm not mistaken. And he was a friend of King. And King was, for the longest time, he was having very heavy, dark thoughts about what we were doing in Vietnam and who it was really hurting. And he let it all out at Vaughn's house. And then when he really decided to go public with it, he had a thing at Riverside Church. I believe this was about 60, when did we go up there? 67, if I'm not mistaken. And I was about 4 rows from him. And then, of course, when he finished speaking, I shook his hand and everything. Not realizing at the time that I knew I was at something special, but I didn't recognize at that time the full magnitude of being able to shake this man's hand. And that shows you the difference in the Republican Party of today as opposed to the late 50s going into the 60s, right? You had Republicans, remember when the whole thing about the ERA, Equal Rights Amendment, which we still haven't managed to pass in this damn country, granting women equal rights, you had a whole gang of Republicans that fought for that amendment. What's his name? Romney, the senator from Utah. His parents, beautiful people, they fought for it. They also fought for civil rights. And that shows you the way the Republican Party was. But unfortunately, they started to listen to the siren song of Pat Buchanan, a few other people, and the demonic brilliance of Richard Nixon. And they started to basically, over a period of time, it didn't happen overnight. Things usually don't happen overnight, right? Over a period of time, they started more and more picking up, I know I'm going to get scorched for this one. Let's just say that the Republican Party opened itself to the intellectual bottom of the barrel, the negativity, the negative aspects of the South. The Republican Party, day by day, week by week, year by year, opened itself up. It's like Barry Goldwater said. He didn't start off being a confirmed racist, by the way, old Barry Goldwater. But he made that statement, hey, when you go hunting, you have to go where the ducks are. And unfortunately for the Republican Party, they have this thing. I don't know, after the 1890s, they really became boring as hell. I'll be quite frank about it. Republicans generally do not, they have a very difficult time winning elections. Usually the only time they win elections is when they manage to scare enough people to vote for them. Watch out for the communist menace. And sure enough, and starting from the mid to the late 60s, the Republicans bit by bit, not all of them, but as I said, one by one, they started saying that the black folks in their quest for civil rights were the enemy of white Southerners. Yeah, the Republican Party. Now, remember, this party was a party that was invented to stop the South, and in particular, Southern Democrats, from spreading slavery on the North and eventually the Southern continents. Not just the North American continents, but North American continent, but the South American continent as well. That was their ultimate goal, to bring slavery back to the Western Hemisphere. And that's why the Republican Party was formed. So it's kind of ironic. You read the writings of people like, what was his name? Sumner, Charles Sumner, Thaddeus Stevens, Abraham Lincoln. Read some of the letters that those guys wrote. Some of the program proposals that they had. My God, you think that you're reading the textbook out of Bernie Sanders. And we're talking about 1863, 1864, 1860, that time period. And yes, the Democratic Party was ostensibly the party of slavery. So with the little twerps running around saying, well, it's really the Republicans who fought for freedom. The Democrats were the slaveholders. Well, yeah, that's true. But see, what they leave out is the fact that the Republican Party began, how should we say, this very bad habit of betraying what they ostensibly were supposed to stand for. They sold out the newly freed slaves in 1876. They did it again at the turn of the 19th century, the 1880s, 1890s. And then they really sold out after the mid-60s. They began to sell out black folks. And see, that's what people need to understand. So when you talk about the Republican Party of today as opposed to the Republican Party of 1861, you're talking about, it's a whole different bag. See? Remember that James Brown song, Papa Got a Brand New Bag? Well, that's what began to happen with the Republican Party as we leave the 60s and go into the 70s. You got to remember something. Some of the toughest, baddest brothers that you had in the Senate, guys like Ed Brooks, here locally, Charlie Hill, folks like that. You had some rough dudes who didn't take no crap. But that was a different Republican Party. Colin Powell, even, I know a lot of us had criticisms about Colin because we think that there were times when he should have spoken out more. I don't disagree. But as far as him being a man and speaking and, and carrying himself as a man and not a flunky, I think Colin, he was pretty, he was good. I'm not going to deny that. And you can see, Colin said it himself, in the first Obama election, was it '08? And he basically said, hey, man, the Republican Party, we've had this element in the Republican Party for quite some time, which is true, and that they have, unfortunately, they have gone too damn far. And as a self-respecting man who happens to be black and an American, I can't swing with this. I tell you what, he's got more cojones than any of these black Republicans you have now, except, for example, what's that brother's name? There's a young lady who comes on with the guy who was the assistant to John McCain in that election of '08, and there's a young black lady that was also, down with McCain and that group in the Republican Party. They left the Republicans. The gentleman who was the last chairman of the Republican National Committee, I can't think of his name right now, but he comes on MSNBC a lot. As a matter of fact, he comes on quite a few different shows, quite a bit, with the possible exception of Fox. And him, that's about it. Rest of the black Republicans, they might as well be eunuchs, okay? Because they act like they're a bunch of damn little cowards, quite frankly. And that's what the Republican Party has today in terms of participation of people of color, see. And it's time that we get real. Same thing with the Jewish community, same thing with the Asian community, same thing with the Hispanic community, same thing with the indigenous American community. If you are a Jew or a person of color, the Republican Party, we're not talking opinions here anymore. We're talking facts. The Republican Party is not for you. They do not want you, or if you are there, they want you to keep your damn mouth shut, and the only time that you're supposed to open your mouth is when you want to attack other people of color or other Jewish people, okay? Now, you don't have to take my word for it. All you have to do is listen to hear these, like that black kid. I believe he's a congressman out of South Florida, Republican. And I listen to this kid, and I look at him, and I'm like, my God, what the hell has happened to some of our people? And no, it's not this thing about, oh goodness, I'm starting to tear up. It's a little warm today, and I think that is irritating my eye somewhat. Excuse me. But it's not about, oh, well, if you're not Democrat, then, you're trying to say that all Republicans are bad, blah, blah. Ain't got nothing to do with that. No person of any true decency should be a part of today's Republican Party. I've had Republicans who have left the Republican Party who have said that they could no longer be part of a party that literally practices racism. See, when you're being racist, you're not just betraying, you happen to be black, right? And you happen to be a Republican that goes along with this Republican Party. It's not because of the fact that you are betraying black people and other people of color. No. What it is that you are committing crimes against humanity. to be a part of this Republican Party. You are in favor of people having their right to vote being suppressed. You are in favor of people that sign laws telling women when they can and cannot decide to have an abortion or not have an abortion, regardless of what they, what they feel is best for them, both physically and emotionally. And you wait until midnight to sign the damn bill? Come on. Intelligent, mature, compassionate lawmakers don't do things like that. All right? They don't support things like that. And that's why it is horrendous to see elected officials of color, running around waving their little Trump flag and what have you. See? And to show you, as an example of how blacks in the Republican Party are basically treated like used condoms. Those 19 folks, what is it, Trump and 18 other folks been indicted? Well, you have two black people, right? One, this lady, I believe she was supposed to be like, or she was a press agent for this Yahoo, what's his name? What's he calling himself now? Yaz or whatever? The one who make, these constant anti-Semitic remarks and statements, and then he gets upset when he finds himself being boycotted. Well, she was his press agent, and she was involved in the harassment and possibly murder of the two black females, the lady and her mother, who worked at the polls. He was just simple poll workers. And Trump and Giuliani accuse these ladies of, they cheated. No such thing. Giuliani's going to have to pay those ladies for the character assassination. And also, like the woman said, you know what it's like to have the President of the United States paint a target on your back? And we know how many of the Trump followers are. And see, this is the kind of thing that black Republicans, they find completely acceptable. Why do I say this? You don't see a whole bunch of them out there demonstrating, do you? How many times? Have you seen any press conference of black Republicans denouncing this kind of behavior? I haven't. And see, this is exactly what I'm talking about. The other black person, what's his name? Harrison Floyd, right? Now, he is sitting up there in jail because he cannot make bail money. Now, I don't know, to me it just seems kind of interesting. The only guy that's still locked up in the hoosgow happens to be a black male, a black Republican guy. And I thought that the Republicans, we're just like Marines. We take care of our own. Well, for all you would-be black Republicans, I seriously suggest that you take a look at this brother's situation. All his, political wheeling and dealing, I think he's got like about maybe 5,000 in his bank account, right? Now, big time, black Republican political operative running around faking elector names and all this kind of crap, right? Putting himself down, letting these people put his name down as a fake elector, right? Okay. And you see his butt sitting up there in jail. They could take a damn collection. All the Republicans in Georgia contribute $2. Get this boy out of jail. And as you see, it ain't happening. Quite frankly, you're a damn fool if you allow yourself to get involved with anything behind Donald Trump. See, that's why this whole damn thing, it's like a coven, well, I don't want to embarrass witches, okay? But it's a cult. It's a damn cult. As many times as you have seen Donald Trump give the shaft to his people, just throwing them under the bus. As many times as you've seen that, and yet you still deal with this guy, black or white, I think that you gotta be out of your damn mind. And yet here we are. We got this brother sitting up in the hoosgow. Why hasn't the Republican National Committee sent him a few bucks? I mean, come on, man. But maybe that will serve as a lesson to other people of color. Hell, maybe that should serve as a lesson to any person of any color. If this guy will not lift a finger to help his friends, what the hell makes you think he'll lift a finger to help his country? Look, it's about race, folks. This whole thing, it's about race. I mean, I could elaborate, get a bunch of encyclopedias talking about the racial history of the United States. But really, the whole thing is about race. We know the country that we live in. And if you don't, then you are damn short-sighted, damn ignorant, okay? What's wrong with being ignorant? Well, nothing if you plan to do something about your ignorance. But if you plan to stay stupid, then wear that title of ignorance, wear it proudly. Don't get offended when people call you ignorant, because it's true. Because you choose to stay ignorant. You choose to stay stupid. And that is wrong. I've been stupid about a lot of things in my life, but I damn sure worked to unstupid myself. We have a situation here where people have been fed a bill of goods for so long that it's like burned into their brain, And there's so much that people need to learn, that people need to know. How are you going to have a country with ignorant people? I believe it was Jefferson that said something to the effect that there has never been in history the case where a nation based on ignorance has ever survived. Now, that's what Jefferson said, or words to that effect. See? And he was right. You know, he was right about that. Okay? You can't, in the 21st century, heading into the 22nd, you're not going to make it with an ignorant populace. You can't do it. And see, America does have enemies. You don't have to be a paranoid, racist, jingoistic nut to say that America has enemies. America, yeah, we got enemies. Yeah, there's a certain amount of jealousy out there. And guess what? We give the enemies of freedom and democracy, we give them plenty of ammunition to use against us. I'll mention the name of a couple of great benefactors to the American Civil Rights Movement. Adolf Hitler, for one. Joe Stalin, for the other. Now everybody's looking around. Hitler was good for the American Civil Rights Movement? Yeah, he was. Because when they started to attack Hitler in the 30s about how he was treating Jews, Hitler turned the tables on them. And what Hitler said was, wait a minute, you're talking about how I treat the Jews. Well, look at how you treat Native Americans. Look how you treat Black Americans. And then after we, finally got into the World War II, Hitler would basically tell them, say, hey, man, you keep talking all this yin-yang about how I treat the Jews here in Germany and Central Europe. Look how you treat Black people. You use Black soldiers who go out and they fight and die for you. Yet, when the Black soldier is tasked to take a German prisoner of war, one of my guys, to the prison camp, the Black soldier, his escort, he has to wait outside the door of the cafeteria car because he cannot, as a Black man, he cannot sit in the dining car. It's not allowed. Because, see, most of the prison camps were down south. And we're talking World War II. So the 30s to 40s, what used to happen, my mom used to tell me about this, right? You ride in the railroad. And D.C. was always the big spot because once that train pulled out of D.C. heading south, your Black behind had better be in the colored cars. Because once you pulled out of D.C., that was it, Jim Crow. Blacks had to sit in the colored car. There was no dining car for Black people. The whites could use the dining car, but the Blacks couldn't. Now, up north, you ride on the train up north, it's kind of different. But D.C., that was the debarkation line. Right? It's just like when you, in the military, when you're getting ready to hit the beach, you come to that point of embarkation, right? Everybody, all your little small craft carrying your troops, they're kind of like in a line. That's the line of embarkation. That's where you jump off from. And that's how it was riding the railroad in the United States of America in 1943. Because remember, in the European theater, we were just starting to really get in the war. War starts for the United States when? December 7th, 1941. We start going on the offensive fall of 1942 in the Pacific and places like Guadalcanal, Midway, what have you, and the main theater, the European theater, primarily in Africa. That's where we first started the march to Berlin, right? We landed in Africa. What was that? Operation Torch. So you started having huge amounts of German prisoners of war. Also, sailors from the German Navy, submarines who we had managed to destroy and capture the crews that were still alive, right? I had the pleasure of having lunch with he was the executive officer of a Nazi U-boat, and they got into a fight with some American destroyers. They lost, and he was captured. He said he was in the prison camp, I believe it was in like South Carolina, and that's what happened. So I got a bunch of German POWs, prisoners of war, captured them in North Africa, bringing them, through Europe, bringing them back to the United States to the prison camp. If that prison ship lands somewhere up north, okay, everything is cool, right? You got black military police officers, military cop soldiers, right? MPs. Everything is fine. Chances are those guys are going to be going either like North Dakota or someplace like that, or South Dakota. Chances are, though, they'll probably wind up going to South Carolina, Texas, Georgia, places like that. And what would literally happen, I'm on escort duty, right? I'm escorting 5 German POWs. Okay, lunchtime. We gotta get something to eat. So what happens, I march them to the dining car. And you're probably gonna have a couple of, white American soldiers in the dining car. And they'll be sitting there throughout the whole meal process. Me, the black soldier who escorted these dudes, I marched them to the dining car, and then I got to go, sit in the colored car or sit any damn place, wherever. And since all the cooks were black, right, brothers would probably hook me up with something. If not, or if the guy who was the head of the train was an a-hole, then he would, give them colored troops a paper bag or something. But I could not go in that dining car. I'm escorting these guys. These guys fought against my country. But they are treated better than I am. And see, that's what, Hitler used to point out all the time, trying to point at the hypocrisy of the United States. Because he wouldn't deny that he was, his hatred for the Jews. But by the same token, he would say, well, America is no better. Because your own soldiers, these men fight and they die for your country. But yet, they cannot even sit in the dining car and eat with the Germans that they have, that they've captured. After World War II, you got Stalin. And America naturally rags Mao and Stalin about communism and the mistreatment of groups of people, right? And Stalin tells them, says, hey, you ain't no better than we are, because look how you treat black people, these men in uniform, right? So that's why I tell people, know what you're talking about and understand this whole process that we've had here in America. To wrap it up, are things better than they were back in the 30s and 40s? Well, of course they are. Of course they are. But we have to acknowledge we still have quite a long ways to go. And quite frankly, the Kennedys were right. This whole concept of some type of Christian Aryan nationalism, it is a threat to the safety and security of the United States. And it should be treated as such. Any of these ideologies that puts one human being above the other is wrong and un-American. And that is the problem with today's Republican Party. They have picked up some of these cockamamie theories from certain European philosophers, and now they are trying to basically rebirth those same type of hateful philosophies here in the United States. That's why a noted black author made the comment that we are dealing now with Jim Crow 2.2, say. And that is the problem with Trump and the Republican Party of today. Listen, I have some more things to go over with you, but I will have to save that until next week. And in the meantime, take care of yourself, stay educated, and be greedy for more education, for more knowledge. Listen, bless you, and take care of yourselves, take care of each other. See you next week, same time, same place, same channel. And this is Bob Gomez with the Concerned Forum. Have a good one.